Okay, globalization. Gosh, this is such a great topic, and we've got two really good case studies this week. So let's take a look at the first one. The first one is one that I've modified, but it's really a great story. So we've got this lady, Joanne, or Joan, and she makes bikes. She makes bikes for larger people. So it's got bigger seat, bigger wheels. The pedal placement maybe it's a little bit wider, and the frames are a little bit stronger. And she makes these bikes because biking is supposed to be a lower impact type of exercise, and so if you want to get in shape, a bike is a good way to do that. So a lot of people just don't like riding in their garage. I mean, I've got a Peloton in the garage. I do it several days a week, but it's a little more fun to be out on the road, right? So she's building these bikes, and she's building them in the U.S. because she's small, and the bikes are super expensive, like a couple grand a bike. And so she gets introduced to this investor, and the investor comes to her and says, "Hey, I've got a hookup in Taiwan. And by the way, Taiwan makes the majority of good bikes that are made in the U.S. They're made in Taiwan. And so I've got to hook up, and instead of you paying 1,300 or $1,250 to have the bike made, now you can make the bike for $550." And so she's sort of caught between a rock and a hard place, at least in her mind, right? She wants to create U.S. jobs. That's sort of one of her objectives. So she used to be a social worker. And so she's like, well, I would love to be able to create U.S. jobs. And so she feels like manufacturing in the U.S. is the way to do that. But as we learned the law of supply and demand, the price is 2 grand. You're going to have a little bit of demand, but you're not going to have a lot of demand. As the price goes lower, you're going to increase demand significantly. And we've got a massive market opportunity, right? The CDC says like 1 in 3 American adults are overweight. And so that represents a huge market opportunity, right? So she's really got this dilemma. If she manufactures in the US, she can customize and offer great customer support, but the prices are high. If she manufactures in overseas, the price drops like a rock, right? So, we got some discussion points here. How important is the made in the USA brand identity? Not just for supersized cycles, but I want you to think about this more broadly, right? When is the last time you actually bought a product because it said it was made in the US? Or did you find out it was made in the US and you were like, okay, that's kind of cool? Or did it not play a role whatsoever, right? You want to have that discussion because if we do believe that there is a made in the U.S. premium that people are willing to pay, then maybe we do manufacture in the U.S. But that's really up to you. And then customer service, being able to offer customization at the shop. I mean, is that important, right? Are there other ways that bicycles can be customized? There's 10,000 bike shops, right? Is there another way that maybe Joanne's bikes could be customized at one of those bike shops? I don't know. That's really up to you. And then, what advice would you give to her, right? Which option do you think would allow her to grow faster? And those are some of the questions you really need to ponder and answer. And then get down to the decisions. What should she do? Should she manufacture in the U.S.? Or should she manufacture abroad? And then once again, we want to take into account law of supply and demand, right? Law of supply and demand says that as prices decline, demand increases. And so we show that over here, right? If the bikes sell for $2,100, you're going to sell 1,000 of them. And so, and here's the deal. Here's the big part is that I want you to calculate revenue and gross margin. So what will revenue be? So you're going to make the assumption that you're going to sell the bike for, I don't know, $2,100, right? And you're going to sell 1,000 of them. That's $2.1 million in revenue. And your cost of goods is going to be $1,250,000, right? So your gross margin would be $650,000. I'm just throwing these are numbers in my head. I'm hoping they're correct. And so Number four, assume for every a new job is created for every 250,000 in gross margin. So if my gross margin is $650,000, I created two jobs, right? So if you lower the price of the bike, you're going to sell more bikes. That's what the law of supply and demand tells us. So I want you to calculate total revenue, calculate total gross margin, right? Remember, gross margin is revenue minus cost of goods. If you manufacture in the US, your cost of goods is $1,250. If you manufacture in Taiwan, your cost of goods is $550. So this one's got a little teeny tiny bit of math, and then that'll give you your total gross margin. And you take that total gross margin number and divide it by 250,000. That'll tell you how many jobs you create. Because the bigger the company gets, the more revenue it generates, the more gross margin that it generates, the more people it needs. Maybe it doesn't need manufacturing people, but it's going to need accounting and sales and marketing and customer service and logistics. So a company doing, for example, $10 million in revenue may not have one person in manufacturing, but it may employ 30 people. And those 30 people are going to be more white collar than blue collar. And so if somebody is saying you manufacture in the US because you want to create jobs, do you really? Or do you create more jobs by outsourcing manufacturing because you're able to increase revenue? That is your challenge. Thanks, everybody. Have fun with this one.